Hi, Mom. I am in the dining room, sitting up straight, and it's not as late as last night, so hopefully I won't fall asleep this time. Uh, if I do, I don't know, nudge the computer, it might wake me up. Anyway, so now we're on chapter 29, The Beautiful Wound. I'm going to try to get to the point where we only have 100 pages left to read, but we'll see how much I can get done tonight. All right, I hope you're having a great time. Also, I know you're going on vacation, on your vacation. So I want to have you have these before you do that as well. Okay, here we go. The Beautiful Wound. Once again, I've wandered far from my topic. Yeah, how many times has that gone on? And yeah, if you're commenting on the red mark on my face, it might be from my mask or something. I don't know. Um, Once again, I've wandered far from my topic. I guess I do that too. I was about to tell you the signs for discerning whether or not a vision is the product of the imagination. How could we create a picture of Christ's humanity in all its detail and conjure his great beauty out of thin air? If the image were to represent him at all, it would take a very long time to generate. We are certainly capable of doing this. We could visualize him, gaze upon his form and radiance, gradually refine the image, and commit it to memory. Since this is the work of the intellect, who can stop us? But there is no way we could create the kind of vision I'm talking about here. We see what the Lord shows us when he wants us to see it and in the form in which he wants to show it to us. No matter how hard we try, we cannot produce it or remove it, add to it or subtract from it. We look at it whenever we want to see it or look away when we don't feel like seeing it anymore. And if we try to focus on one particular feature, Christ disappears. God granted me this blessing frequently over the course of 2.5 years. A little over 3 years ago, he replaced the vision with a more sublime favor, one that he has been giving me almost continually ever since. When I first began to receive visions of Christ, I was aware that he was speaking to me. I gazed at his great beauty and felt the sweetness of the words that came from his divine mouth, even when they were stern. I desperately wanted to know the color of his eyes and how tall he was, so that I could accurately describe them later. But I was never worthy enough to see these things, and striving to do so produced no results. In fact, the effort only made the vision disappear. Sometimes I see him looking at me with heartbreaking compassion. In general, the vision is so powerful that my soul cannot bear it and slips into a sublime rapture. I lose the vision so that I can more fully enjoy the vision. I lose the vision so that I can more fully enjoy the vision. So it's not a matter of being willing or unwilling. It is clear that all the Beloved wants of us is humility and holy bewilderment. He wants us to accept what we are given and praise the one who gives it. This is true for all visions, without exception. There is nothing we can do about it, nor can we undo anything. We can't see more, and we can't see less than we are offered. The Lord wants us to be clearly aware that this is not our work, but His Majesty's. That way we avoid spiritual pride. Instead, we are humbled and awestruck when we realize that just as the Lord takes away our power to see whatever we want to see, whenever we want to see it, so He may remove any of His other favors and gifts, and we will be left utterly lost. As long as we live in this exile, we should always walk with trepidation. Our Lord almost always appeared to me in His risen form. It was the same when I saw Him in the host during communion. If I were suffering some tribulation, He would occasionally show me His wounds to give me encouragement. Sometimes He appeared on the cross or in the garden. A few times I saw Him wearing the crown of thorns. Sometimes He would be carrying His cross, depending on what I or other people needed. But His body was always glorified. I was persecuted terribly for speaking about these visions. I weathered innumerable insults and trials. The men who were observing me were so convinced that I was possessed by an evil spirit that some of them wanted to arrange an exorcism. This did not bother me much. What really upset me was when I saw that my confessors were afraid to hear my confession because of things that people were saying about me. In spite of the fears they filled me with, I could never manage to regret having seen these heavenly visions. I would not trade a single one of them for all the blessings and delights in the world. I have always considered a vision an offering of great mercy from the Lord. The Lord Himself has assured me many times that visions are priceless treasures. I found my love for God growing stronger and stronger. Whenever I went to the Lord to lament my trials, I came away from my prayer feeling consoled and strengthened. I still didn't dare contradict my critics, though, because I could see that they could they would only interpret this as evidence of a serious lack of humility, and this would make things worse. I did discuss everything with my confessor. Whenever he saw that I was troubled, he made a sincere effort to comfort me. My visions began to increase in frequency and intensity. One of the members of the group of men who were scrutinizing me insisted that I was being deceived by the devil. This priest had sometimes heard my confession when my regular confessor wasn't available. "Since you seem incapable of resisting these diabolical intrusions," he said, "you must make a sign of the cross and thumb your nose whenever you feel a vision coming on. If you do this with conviction," he continued, "the devil will leave you and never come back." He must have misread the distress on my face. "Don't be afraid," he said magnanimously. "God will protect you." But I didn't believe the visions came from anything other than God in the first place. It was excruciating for me to obey the command and make this rude gesture at my beloved. Nor could I possibly desire that these visions go away. But in the end, I did what I was told. With many tears, I persistently begged God to free me from any deception. Maybe she needed to pray to free her from these particular confessors. That might have been a good choice, too. I begged St. Peter and I begged St. Paul, both of whom were dear to me, since it was on their feast day that the Lord first appeared to me. Christ himself had told me that they would guard me against being deceived. I often clearly perceived them on my left. This was not an imaginative vision. These two saints were powerful protectors of mine. Thumbing my nose in the Lord's face caused me unbearable anguish. When I saw him there with me, I would not have been able to believe this had anything to do with the devil if they broke me into 1,000 pieces. This mandate was a severe penance for me. I couldn't bear to make such a disrespectful gesture while I was having a vision of Christ. Since obeying it would have required my crossing myself and thumbing my nose every 5 seconds anyway, I started holding a cross in my hand instead. The situation reminded me of the way Christ was persecuted by his own people. I begged the Lord to forgive me. Whenever I thumbed my nose at him, I was only obeying the ministers he had placed in his church to represent him. He told me not to worry and reassured me that I did the right thing to obey them. Oy. He also said that he himself would show them the truth. When they prohibited me from practicing prayer, the Lord seemed to become annoyed. He told me to tell them that they were now crossing over into tyranny. He gave me clear signs for determining that a vision did come from the spirit of evil. I'll say more about this later. The cross I carried was attached to a rosary. One day I was holding it. Christ took it from me with his own hands. When he gave it back to me, it was completely changed. Now the cross was composed of 4 large stones. They were incomparably more valuable than diamonds. Nothing can be compared to supernatural things. A diamond seems imperfect and fake next to the precious stones Christ handed to me. Christ's 5 wounds were inscribed in the jewels with the most intricate skill. He told me that from now on I would behold the cross in this new way, and this is exactly what happened. I was never again able to see the wood from which the crucifix was fashioned, but no one else seemed to be able to see these precious stones. As soon as I tried to obey the command to reject these favors from God, they began to happen more frequently. My very effort to resist them seemed to propel me into a state of unceasing prayer. I even seemed to be praying in my sleep. My love for my God grew so intense that I complained to him that I could not bear it, but no matter how much I tried, I could not stop thinking about him. Although I strove to obey my superiors when I could, there was almost nothing I could do about it, and the Lord was no help. He kept me in a constant state of prayer. On the one hand, he told me to do what they said. On the other, he reassured me and taught me what to say to them. And he still does. The arguments he gave me to offer my critics were so sound that I have felt perfectly secure ever since. His Majesty soon followed through on his promise to make it abundantly clear to me that my visions came from him. He began to increase my love for God to such a degree that I didn't know where it came from or how to obtain it. This love was supernatural. I was dying with desire to see God. I didn't know where to seek the life I was longing for except through death. Such powerful impulses of love coursed through me that I didn't know what to do with myself. Nothing satisfied me. I couldn't stand to be with myself. It truly seemed like my soul was being torn away from me. O Lord, you supreme trickster, what subtle artfulness you use to do your work with this miserable slave of yours. You hide yourself from me and afflict me with your love. You deliver such a delicious death that my soul would never dream of trying to avoid it. These impulses are so intense that it would be impossible for anyone who has not experienced them to imagine what they feel like. They do not disquiet the heart. They are not the same as those bursts of devotional emotion that commonly overwhelm the spirit. They are of a much higher order of prayer than these. I have found that the best way to handle impetuous spiritual stirrings is to gather them gently within myself and quiet my soul. This lower condition should be treated the same way you might deal with children who are having a tantrum. You know when they cry so hard that it seems like they are about to choke to death? The minute you hand them something to drink, the sobbing ceases. That's what this is like. Natural weakness is sometimes confused with true religious emotion. Reason needs to step in and take command of the situation. When we reflect on the rush of feeling more deeply, we may be surprised to see that it does not have a totally perfect source, but rather comes from the sensory part of the soul. Let this child be comforted with a gentle caress. Let us not bludgeon the child, but draw out his love with our love. Let us contain this love and not spill it out like a pot that heats up too fast and boils over because we feed the fire too much wood. Let us moderate the source of the flame. Gentle tears regulate the fire. Passionate tears put the fire out. Their source is emotional, and they can do us harm. In the beginning, I used to experience this kind of crying, and it always left my soul's spirit so exhausted and my mind so confused that it took me a few days before I was fit to pray again. It's really important to cultivate discrimination during the early stages of the spiritual path. That way, everything will unfold smoothly, and the spirit learns to work on the inner planes. We need to strive consciously to avoid getting caught by external feelings. These higher impulses I am talking about are very different. We ourselves do not put wood on the fire. It is already burning, and we are suddenly thrown into it to be consumed. We are ablaze with anguished longing for God. We do not try to feel the pain of this wound caused by our separation from Him. We are overcome by it. Sometimes an arrow of love pierces the heart and penetrates the deepest core of the soul so that she doesn't know what has happened or what she wants, except that all she wants is God. It feels like the arrow has been dipped in a poisonous herb that makes her reject herself for love of Him. She would gladly give up her life for Him. It's impossible to explain the way God wounds a soul or to exaggerate the agony exaggerate the agony this causes. It makes the soul forget herself entirely. Yet this pain carries such exquisite pleasure that no other pleasure in life can compare to that happiness. The soul longs to die of this beautiful wound. The blending of pain and glory was very confusing to me at first. I couldn't understand how they could coexist, or what a gift it is to behold a wounded soul. We need to understand her condition as a sacred one, and recognize that she has been wounded for a sublime purpose. The soul did not make this love happen. Rather, it seems that a spark of the boundless love the Lord has for the soul has leapt out of the flame and landed on her, setting her on fire. Oh, how many times do I remember the words of David when I am in this state. As the deer longs for streams of water, so my soul longs for you, O God. I seem to embody this passage, literally. All right, Mom, I'm going to break out my pen, which I haven't done since I've been reading to you. Kind of leaves my book a little bit bare to bring up in discussion. I like that passage there. I don't know about you. So I'm going to, in a one-handed manner, find a pen in my purse. Hopefully. Pardon as you look at my head. Look for gray hairs. All right. I'm just going to make this mark here and circle the page. All right. Back to reading. When these love longings are not quite as intense, they can be somewhat subdued. The soul tries to find some relief through certain penances, because she does not know what else to do. But she no more feels the pain of these sacrifices than a dead body would feel its blood being shed. She is deliberately seeking ways and means for dealing with the love of God that consumes her, but no self-inflicted bodily pain can mitigate this soul pain. Such low remedies as physical penance make poor medicine for such a high disease. They can alleviate the condition of a little, and the soul can make do in this way while she begs God to give her a more permanent cure for her suffering. But she sees no way out except by dying. Death feels like the only way the soul can fully enjoy her beloved. Sometimes, however, this pain is so severe that the soul is incapable of doing penances or anything else. The body becomes paralyzed. She cannot move her hands or feet. If she is standing, she drops into a sitting position. She is like a person being transported by others. She cannot even draw a breath on her own. She may utter a few sighs, but they are inaudible. She doesn't even make a sound. The sighing happens on the inside. While I was in this state, the Lord chose to give me the following vision. I saw an angel in bodily form standing very close to me on my left side. Although angels have appeared to me many times, I have rarely seen them in bodily form. Usually I see them without my eyes, like in those intellectual visions I was telling you about before. This time, however, God wanted me to see the vision like this. The angel was not large. He was quite small and very beautiful. His face was lit up by flame, brilliantly the highest order of entirely. He didn't, but I know there is a big difference between various angelic realms. I wouldn't know how to explain such things. I saw that he held a great golden spear. The end of the iron tip seemed to be on fire. Then the angel plunged the flaming spear through my heart again and again until it penetrated my innermost core. When he withdrew it, it felt like he was carrying the deepest part of me away with him. He left me utterly consumed with love of God. The pain was so intense that it made me moan. The sweetness of this anguish carries with it the sweetness this anguish carries with it is so bountiful that I could never wish for it to cease. The soul will not be content with anything less than God. The pain is spiritual, not physical. Still, the body does not fail to share some of it, maybe even a lot of it. The love exchange between the soul and her God is so sweet that I beg him in his goodness to give a taste of it to anyone who thinks I might be lying. On the days when this vision appeared to me, I wandered around in a kind of stupor for many hours. I didn't want to look at anything or say anything. All I wanted was to embrace my pain and hold it close. This was greater glory than any created thing could ever offer me. Sometimes it was the Lord's will for these raptures to be so intense that I could not resist them, even if I was among other people. To great dismay, people started talking about them. As time went on, the suffering that accompanied the visions grew softer. But in the beginning, the pain could be so excruciating that the Lord lifted my soul and carried her into ecstasy. In that place, there is no room for suffering. It is pure joy. May he be forever blessed. He has granted so many favors to one who has so poorly responded to his great gifts. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 29. I'm going to pause it here and continue reading. All right. Love you, Mom.